It is good to be here. What a wonderful evening. And I think every one of us would love to have a time to preach following a song leader like Myron. Amen? Thank you. Well, we've got a packed house this evening, and it's an honor knowing how many gifted, wonderful, faithful preachers are in the audience. It is a joy, but it is a privilege and honor for me to stand here this evening. And to be back at North Mac for the Affirming the Faith, I am invited to speak many places. I'm seldom invited back. So this is a real treat for me to be here. We are in the book of Ephesians this week, and we will be this evening, especially chapter 5 and verses 16 and 17. I was born back in 19, none of your business, so I'm getting a little bit older, and I've heard all of my life, and I'm starting to realize the truism of this statement. As you grow older, life goes faster. The days just fly by. And I'm starting to realize the truth of that. But do you know that science bears this out? Research shows that your brain's internal clock, keep going back. There we go, one more back. Science shows that your brain's internal clock runs more slowly as you're younger, and then it begins to speed up as you age, but which means the pace of life appears to speed up with it. Other research suggests that the perceived passage of time is related to the amount of new perceptual information. In other words, fresh information, new information, the more that you're absorbing. So it means when you're younger, you're learning a lot more as you're growing. So it seems like time just moves slowly. That's why I explained to the college kids at Harding, when you're in those, you're learning a lot. That's why it seems like these classes just go forever. You're young, you're learning. But then the older you get, the slower that happens and the faster time begins to happen. And there's biomedical research shows that the release of dopamine in your brain, when we perceive novel or new information, that stimuli begins to drop steadily after the age of 20. In other words, the older you get, the more you perceive time's moving rapidly. And it does. That's why it's hard for me to realize that we are already in the third month of 2023. I mean, it just seems like yesterday that we were celebrating a new year. And we reflect at the beginning of years. We look at those New Year's resolutions. We take stock of who we are, how we've grown during the year, maybe how we need to continue to grow more in some areas and places of our lives. And so we reflect. The college church back in Searcy has done a lot of that. Now, we are a very different church today, really, than we were a year ago this same time. Certainly very, very different than where we were and what we looked like before COVID hit us. Probably your congregations are the same. But since coming back from COVID, and just looking back over the last 12, 14, 15 months, we've had a lot of additions to our church. I imagine yours has too. We've had some new members that moved into the area. We've baptized some new people as we've taught them the message of Christ. We've had a number of new babies born into our church family. Other families have adopted young children. And so it seems like every few weeks we bring a family up and we have a prayer blessing over them because they've added to our church family. We've had a lot of additions. We've also done a lot of reflecting. We have recently undergone our vision. We have what's called the vision for the road ahead. And the elders had this vision, but then they broke it down into ad hoc committees and subcommittees. We researched and surveyed the whole church. We took in a lot of information. And so about 6 months ago, they rebooted our vision for the road ahead. And we have a new direction, a very clear direction for our church family that we're basing our goals and our decisions upon. And so there's been a lot of changes in the recent months. As we've had additions, we've had changes, but we've also had loss. We have lost a tremendous number of good, godly men and women. And we stand on the shoulders of some of these giants that have helped build the college church in Searcy. In fact, they've helped build churches all over the world, literally. And we've lost some of them because of death. We've lost some other families because they've moved away, or maybe they chose to go to another congregation where they felt like they could better fit in and get involved and where their kids could be. And we regret all of those. So we've had some victories. I feel like we've had some defeats. But we are a very different congregation than we were just a year ago. And maybe as I'm talking about the congregation where I serve, you're nodding your head thinking the same things about where you worship and serve. But if we're honest with ourselves as even members, I know we have a lot of preachers and elders and leaders, but teachers and song leaders and workers, and we've got a lot of members, just people who are doing their part to help the kingdom where they worship and serve. And every one of us, as we look over the last years of our life, I know that we all have those times where we feel like we've done really well, and maybe some times where we wish we had done a whole lot better. I mean, there were times when we saw the opportunity, we saw the need, we spoke to the person, we encouraged that person, we served in that work, and we did what was necessary. And we kind of pat ourselves on the back for doing what we needed to do when it needed to be done. But every one of us has our regrets. Times that we didn't speak to someone when later we wish we had. A time we weren't involved, and then later we wish that we had been part of a work that did so much. Now, if you think I'm going in a direction to make you feel guilty tonight, I want you to know if you have some regrets about not saying or not doing what you needed to say or do when the opportunity was afforded to you, I want you to know that's just life. That we all experience the good and the bad. That's just life. None of us are enough close to perfect that we can look back on the last several months of our life and say, boy, I don't believe I did much at all wrong. Can we? That's just life. We all have our victories, we have our regrets, but we also have our resolve. I really want to do better in a lot of different areas of my life, whether it's health or personal relationships or my work. I want to do better. I have that resolve. And I'm probably a lot like you in those New Year's resolutions. How are they doing now that you're in March? You're like, oh, what New Year's resolutions, right? You know, Myron, I'll tell you, there's one thing I don't ever like to preach on. I never want to preach on family and marriage. You know why? My wife's in the audience. That's tough. I want to do better. I intend to do better. I think I do better. But I know there's at least one person out there who knows every mistake I make as a husband or as a father. And so I want to do better. I have that resolve. I want to be a better preacher. And I've been at it a good number of years now, but I'm trying to work still on my skills and honing the gifts that God has given me. And I want to be a better minister. You may be thinking, well, you just said that. No, preaching's what I do on Sunday, but minister is what I do the rest of the week. I want to minister better. I want to be there for people, whether it's in the hospital, in their homes, their places of work, in the hallway. Sometimes I had a lady just this past week, very faithful lady of our congregation, and she just said, you know, I don't know what I did to offend you, but you've stopped talking to me. And if this were the college church, she's sitting right back there on the middle aisle, just in the back on the right side. And I said, you haven't done anything to offend me, and I certainly didn't mean to offend you. He says, well, there's been 2 Sundays you walked right by me and didn't say a thing. I said, well, Sunday's busy. I don't intend for it, but I get busy and I have to get back to the PowerPoint room or do something. But you know what? I want to do better. And even if it's in just walking up the aisle of the church on Sunday, I want to minister better and say hello to more people. And I get focused on what I need to be doing just that moment, where I need to be back there in that PowerPoint room, and not what I should be doing. Ministry. And I'm not the only. We have a congregation of 1,400 ministers. Every one of us need to be ministering to each other and encouraging and building each other up. I want to do, but I hope you have that same resolve to be whoever you are, to be a better elder, to be a better deacon, Bible class teacher, song leader, a servant, a young person in the youth group, a young family with small children, maybe an older couple who's been in that congregation for years and years. You still have a whole lot more to offer, better than you have in the past. We have that resolve. So let me ask myself a question. You can ask this to yourself, but I'm asking this to me. And assuming this was a normal weekend where I'd be at College Church in Searcy, but what if this coming Sunday was my last Sunday to be with my church family? Now, you ask the same question for who you are and where you worship. What if this were the last Sunday? Is there someone that I know is having difficulty in life and they need encouragement? Now, I haven't spoken to them in a couple, 3 weeks, but I know they're going through a tough time and they need encouraging. If you knew this was going to be the last Sunday you would be with this church, would you speak to that person? You see where I'm going? We need to take the opportunities, because we need to take the opportunities now. We may not be given those. Every one of us is going to have our last Sunday. We don't know when that'll be. We're not a prophet nor the son of a prophet, but every one of us one time will have that last time with that person and that couple and that preacher and this elder. Every one of us will have our last time. I met Arnold Kelly some years ago, one time when he was preaching down in Laurel, Mississippi. He passed away in January of 2021, so not long ago. He was only at the tender age of 73, but he wrote a short piece called The Last Hug, and I want to share that with you. Now, he's a preacher, and so this starts in the setting of a wedding. Arnold Kelly says, "The wedding was about to begin. The groom was nervous. The bride was radiant. The guests were all in their places. And I was trying to calm the anxiety-stricken groomsmen. Then the father of the bride caught my attention. He was serene, pensive, almost tearful. I wonder when the last time was that I picked her up and held her," he said, the father. "I mean, the very last time. I don't remember. I only know that if I would have realized that this was the last time that I would hold my little girl, I would have held her longer and tighter and with more feelings. The last time." These are serious words. The last football game for the quarterback. The last work day for the retiree. The last kiss for the widow. The last time. Serious words. What if you were to invest your energy into every day as if it were your last day? How would it be different from the routine? Think of the automatic change this world would have if most of our relationships with parents and children and spouses and friends all changed because it was the last day. Are there feelings in your heart that are destined to stay locked inside? Because the body in the coffin does not hear the words of the loved one standing beside it. The writer of Hebrews understood this principle. Today, if you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Encourage one another as long as it is called today. Today there are many opportunities, he writes, which may never come again. Doors may be open today, which may be shut tomorrow. One day, there will be that last hug for all of us. There will be that last church service. There will be that last singing of the favorite hymn. And there will be the last kiss and the last goodbye. One day will come, which will be the last of all things. I'm the father of 2 daughters they're married now, so I feel the emotion of the father of the bride. What if the apostles truly had known, if they could have known and understood the gravity of that last night in the upper room as they celebrated the Passover with Jesus? What if they really understood this was the last evening that they were going to spend with Him? How would that night, how would the story have been different if they knew that was their last time with Jesus? I wonder, would they have been more open to wash the feet of the apostles, but certainly the feet of Jesus? Would they have been a little more taking the initiative in washing one another's feet if they knew that was the last night? Would they have argued about who was the greatest among them if they knew it was the last? And when they sang that hymn and left the room and they crossed that Kidron Valley and they went to the garden, and Jesus said to Peter, James, and John, "Stay here, watch, and pray." If they knew that was the last night, I wonder if they would have fallen asleep. You see, understanding about the last day, the last time, the last kiss, the last word, understanding the importance and the value of that moment changes how we live, how we treat one another. And this is why we need to place great value and time on the opportunities that we're given today. If we keep putting off saying the things that need to be said to that person, good or bad, to build them up or maybe to correct them. If we keep putting off saying the things that need to be said, doing the things that need to be done, there will come a time when that opportunity is no longer given to any one of us. The Apostle Paul writes in Ephesians 5, verses 15 and 16, "Look carefully then how you walk." Walk is just a way of saying how you live. How you live every day of your life. Be careful about how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time. Most of us learned this verse in our old King James Bible, redeeming the time. Redeeming the time, making the best use of that time, because the days are evil. The simple fact is, if we misuse the opportunities that we have, if we don't redeem the time that we have when we're given that time, you understand that we cannot reclaim it sometime later. It's gone. Whatever opportunity you had today to do what you needed to do, in just a few short more hours, that opportunity is now gone. And it's gone forever. I told you we've had some loss at College Church. We lost a dear brother and a shepherd in the church, Fred Jewell. For many, many years, we lost a lot of institutional knowledge with Fred about all of the mission works that we support and help all over the world. And one particular Sunday, we lost Fred just a month or about 5 weeks ago. We lost Fred, but he was ill, but he's still with us. And back in November, we had Molly Davidov. Maybe you know the name. She is right now over in Poland helping a lot of the refugees that come out of Ukraine. And our congregation, churches and individuals have funneled hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars through College Church that goes to Molly Davidov. And this particular Sunday, we were going to have Molly and her daughter in church with us. And I could not, for the life of me, think about Molly's daughter's name. And so I texted Fred, and I said, "Fred, when you're up to it and got a convenient moment, just give me a holler and get back with me. I want to ask you Molly's daughter's name." Well, in the meantime, before Fred could get back to me, the church office let me know her name was Annabelle. So I said to Fred, "Never mind, I have my question answered. Have a great day, brother." Now, at the same time that I'm texting Fred, I happen to be texting my wife, Lael. And so I've got two conversations going. You ever done this, text messaging? So now, Lael and I have been talking about this staff Christmas party that's going to be coming up and what she needs to bring. And so she asked me what they're going to have. And so thinking I'm texting Lael, I text Fred, and here's my next response to him. We're having a taco bar. I realized what I had done, and I wrote back and said, that last message was for someone else. I'm so sorry, ha-ha. And he ha-ha'd back. How many of you have texted someone words that you wish you could take back? Every one of us, if you're honest. I mean, but don't you wish that we could do that? Especially when we speak real words to people. And sometimes we say things we wish we had never said. Or we did something we wish we had never done. And we wish we could just take it all back and make it go away. Every one of us has those kinds of regrets. Maybe we didn't do what we should have done. Or maybe we should have not done what we did do. Regrets. There was about that same time, there was another man, Harold Valentine. Myron, he's a great gospel singer like you are. And he has led singing hundreds of times for me. And Harold's one of our song leaders, a little older man and a little bit older, and so he had different ways of doing it. He wasn't into PowerPoint. He liked it the way God intended for it with the songbooks, okay? So we'd build the PowerPoint based on his song choices, but he would come in and he'd get the songbook printout for him to lead in. So he came in on Friday. He was going to lead on Sunday night of that week. So he comes in on Friday, and he and I had a very special relationship, and mostly our relationship was that we never said a kind word to each other. He would come in, and he'd say something kind of off the wall, and he'd kind of harass me a little bit, and I always said something snarky back to him, and we had that good relationship. We did really, truly love one another, but we had that. And so he picks it up on Friday. He's going to lead singing on Sunday. Only problem was he died on Saturday. Suddenly. No one saw it coming. But I wonder how I would have treated my good friend Harold Valentine on Friday if I had known it would be the last time I would see him. I probably would have still been snarky, but I would have said something positive to him. And I miss him dearly. Paul explains why we need to be resolved in this. He says, because the days are evil. That word evil, panaros, means something is actively opposing the things that God is doing. When you try to do what is good, when you try to do what's right and to the glory of God to build up the kingdom, whatever good thing you're doing, there's a satanic force in this world that is working against you. Everything good you try to do, evil tries to undermine the good that you and I are doing. That's one way to look at this verse, and I think it's appropriate. Another way to look at this verse is that the days are evil in that they're working against you. After today, you now have one less day to do the things you need to do to the glory of God. We don't live with more, days in our lives. We live with less days in our life. Day after day, month after month. Psalms 90 and verse 10, the years of our life, they're 70. A lot of us have reached that. Aren't we glad? Even by reason of strength, some of us 80. Yet their span is but toil and trouble, and they are all too soon gone. And we fly away. And what Ephesians 5 and what Psalms 90 is trying to say to us is we need to value, we need to place great importance on the wisdom of knowing when we have the opportunity to do good to someone or for the kingdom, let's do it today. Let's redeem the time and make the best use of our time. So real quickly, what's the best use of our time? Well, I think we need to spend more time with God every day. Now, that may be the absolute, just the absolute best use of your time that I can think of. To wake up and knowing that you have set aside, you've carved out a portion of your day that you're going to spend some quiet time with God, just you and Him alone. And while that is the best use of your time and my time, don't think that just because I'm a preacher that just becomes obvious to me. I am the world's worst about getting really busy and involved in doing a lot of important stuff, a lot of things in ministry, a lot of things for the church members. Sometimes I get involved in doing so many of the important stuff, I sometimes set aside the most valuable thing I could do, and that is spending time with God. Psalms 42, verse 1. As the deer pants for those flowing streams of water, so my soul longs for you, O God. Spending time with God, David says, is the most... He wakes up in the morning longing for that moment when he gets to go into his room and spend time with God. When you wake up, is that the first thing on your mind? Or do you do like me so often and grab the phone? As the deer pants for the water's brook, so my soul longs for you, O God. Perhaps this is because we preachers, we like to do a whole lot more talking than we do listening. Maybe what we need to do is just be quiet, get into the Word, and let God talk to us. That's why David says in Psalm 62 in verse 1, "For God alone my soul waits in silence. From Him comes my salvation." I'm just telling you, spending time with God for the disciple of Christ is not an elective. It's an imperative. And you may be the one exception, but if you are the exception, you are the only exception that's walking planet Earth. Someone who says, I can grow spiritually without spending time in the Word every day. Because I'm telling you, it cannot happen. Maybe that's the best use of our time. But we also need to invest our time invested in the lives of other people, especially young people. You know what Philippians 2 and verse 3 says, that, not in vain conceit, but humility of your heart, consider other people more important than you. And I think when he says consider other people more important than you, he's saying invest your life, treat them, show them how important they are. And you can't do that without spending time with them. And I tell you, especially the young people, parents, I wish I could tell you all you need to do and make sure that your children are raised up in the teaching and admonition of the Lord. You just make sure you bring them to church and come listen to one of my sermons. You just pat them on the behind, send them off to Bible class, and that's really all you need to do. But I'm telling you, it takes a whole lot more than just a preacher's sermon and a Bible class teacher's lesson. Folks, we need elders who are invested in the lives of young people. Small, high school, college. They need to know that those of us who are older, we love them and we value them, because you know the statistics right now. Our young people are leaving our fellowship. And one of the things we need to do to stem that tide is to invest ourselves into their lives and show them what it means to love Jesus, to be faithful to God, to be obedient to His Word. And husbands, how would it change your marriage if you treated your wife as more important than you are? And wives, if you treated your husband as though he's more important than you are. And parents and children, if we valued each other that way, how would it change our homes? How would it change your church? If the person across the aisle that you hardly ever talk to, what if this Sunday you went over there and talked to them as though they were more important than you are? How would it change the fellowship of your church? And then we need to make sure that we're enjoying today as a gift of God. To enjoy today as a gift from God. Because I spent a lot of my life saying, well, one of these days I'm going to put a smile on my face. When I finally get out of my parents' house, when I finally get my car, when I finally get out of college, and when I get my first job, and when I get married, we're always saying there's something out there that's finally going to make me happy and fulfilled. And then for years it was, when I get those kids out of my house, and when I have a grandchild, and when I have 12 grandchildren, my list just keeps growing and growing. But David said, today, this day is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, why are you spinning your wheels worrying about tomorrow so much? Tomorrow has enough problems of its own. Why don't you seek first the kingdom of God? Which is another way of saying, why don't you do the things you need to be doing today? Talking to the people you need to be talking to today. And so treat today like it's valued and have joy and blessing today. Don't keep waiting. Find joy in the Lord today. And then be sure you or someone you know is prepared to meet a holy God. Let that one sink in. Because Romans 14 and verse 12 says that one day, every one of us is going to come to our last day. And we are going to stand and give an account to a holy God. When my girls were small, I used to read to them a book called The Monster at the End of the Book. How many of you have ever seen that book? It was first published in 1971. It was part of that golden, what do they call that, the golden book collection. The Monster at the End of the Book. It's a Sesame Street. That's a McDonald's. Sesame Street book. And but I guess I read that dozens and dozens of times. And I always thought that was just nothing more but a child's book. But there's a real truth in that book. Because that book says every book comes to an end. Every person's story comes to an end. Right now, I'm in the beginning pages of the 60th chapter of my book. Some of you are in chapter 70 or 80. Some of you are in chapter 20 or 40. We're everywhere. And the thing is that most of us spend our days writing our story as though there's always going to be another chapter. There's always going to be another page, and another page, and another page. And we don't live our life today with the realization that today could be the last page. And today could be the end of our book. And what's at the end of our book? Well, it could be something as big and scary as a monster called judgment. Or it could be as comforting as a Savior with His arms opened wide and speaking the words, well done, good and faithful servant. Swiftly we're turning life's daily pages. The days just go faster and faster. Swiftly the hours are changing to years. How are we using God's golden moments? Will we reap glory or will we reap tears? Myron, go ahead and make your way on up here, because today you and I have the opportunity to respond to the gospel in a way that says we value what the words of Christ mean to us. And today, the gospel has been given into our hands. And so let's make the best use of the time we have. God bless you.